So something worth considering is a problem that I have seen a lot, almost universally, honestly, among students learning mathematics. And that is the misunderstanding that because a number has an infinitely long decimal expansion, it is somehow infinite itself, right? So you take something like 1/3, you try to make a decimal expansion of that, and you get this 0.3333333, right? And there's a facet to this that they don't understand, that nobody tells them, which is that the decimal expansion is something like 2 is actually also infinitely complex. It's important that these are zeros all the way out. If there's ever something that's not a zero, then the value isn't 2, it's something else. Okay? And then what about things like, oh, pi? Like I've heard kids say, lots of kids say, oh, pi, it's infinite. Because their teachers are fucking dumbasses. Okay? Like, they're explaining the wrong thing. But it's not just that, because it's every student from all over the place. So it's the culture. It's the culture that's wrong. Like, no, pi is, it's just a number. It's not. It's just a value. Just like 1 is, right? Pi and 1 and √2, square root of 17, 18, 93, whatever you want, whatever. They're all the same thing. The problem that's happening here is we're committing too hard to ideas like Archimedes' property and the virtues of decimal notation. Right? If your only way of writing values is decimal notation, you're never able to see past Archimedes' property, and you're never able to see that pi is simply a value. It's just a size of something relative to some unit that we've described. Right? If we define the perimeter of a circle to be our unit, things change a little bit, right? So the reason that we're getting pi is because that's the amount of the amount of arc that you get, the distance of that arc that you get when you're doing like the chord function, right? So you're using the diameter as your base, as your 1, and then you get, well, you're using your radius as 1, and then you get pi of those. So your diameter is 2. Yeah, that's where it's come from. That's where it's come from. Pi would be, if you're using the whole diameter, pi is the circumference itself instead of 2 pi. Right, so we manipulate our units and you get a different value. But if you make your circumference of your circle 1, then your radius is 1 on 2 pi. 1 on tau. Right. So these, you know, there is no single way to look at this where it's inevitable that the Archimedean property applies, where it's inevitable that you get an infinite expansion for the value that you're looking at. Right? And to its credit, this is one of the main benefits of algebra. We can convert units like this very, very easily, right? Which is highlights the fact that algebra is primarily operating with vectors. So whenever I'm saying number here, I'm trying to correct myself. But it's like in that other video where where I said 1962, and I should have, the number I'm reading and the number that's on screen is 1622. Yeah, your brain, you were raised in a cult, right? You were raised with propaganda around you, and you can't ever fully get past that. So I'm going to say number when I don't mean number, when I mean vector. I'm going to say stupid shit like 1962 when the date that I'm reading is 1692, because 9 and 6 look like each other. They're just upside down versions of each other, so mild dyslexia at play there. But also, growing up my whole life, the only dates that anybody ever talked about for the most part were in the 1900s. So, and everybody told me, oh, 1960s, that was a long time ago. When I was little, I don't really feel that way now, but it doesn't fully change the way that you operate as a person. Right? And this is absolutely relevant. The psychology of this is absolutely relevant to what I'm talking about here. Because if you grow up being told that this is how numbers work, that these decimal expansions, these infinite decimal expansions are, what pi is, it's this infinite decimal expansion. What e is, it's this infinite decimal expansion. You're going to, at some level, at some basic level, the part of you that doesn't really understand anything, that's just like memory manipulation, right? That part is just going to put this together and say, oh, pi is infinite, oh, e is infinite, oh, phi is infinite, square root of 2 is infinite. And you can't actually get to this. And you take that logic a little bit further, like you try to free yourself of that, and you run into a brick wall of the Archimedean property because you still can't see any other way to do it. And I think this is largely what occurred with individuals like Georg Cantor. To his credit, he was referring to the things he was working with as transfinites. So I do think he specifically, he had a sense that there was something else going on. And sometimes you'll see lip service paid to, oh, we're not talking about absolute infinity. So there is a shallow awareness of what's going on for sure. I'm sure there's individuals that feel similarly to how I feel, that this isn't just a fucked up way of explaining shit. But Cantor's diagonal argument, I really think what's happening there is he's sort of just falling into this trap of little kid thinking, based on the propaganda that adults are feeding you about how numbers work, because we use base 10, and you can get an arbitrarily accurate approximation of any value just by going further down your decimal expansion. I'm currently running, I don't think it's even going to work. Currently running a Python script that's trying to find the terms to my convergent infinite series for pi on 4 that grows exponentially. So I finally found the 10th term the other day. It's 12,050 digits long. The 10th term is 12,000 digits. It gives you something like 15,000 digits or something like that of pi. Just the 10th term. That's ridiculous. Yeah. So I'm looking at trying to get to about the 1.5 million digits of pi on 4 there. So, which is the same as, it's the same number of digits more or less as pi. So, again, I might casually slip up and say that because effectively it doesn't matter. But I was raised thinking to think that pi is the important one. Even though now I don't feel that way. I feel that pi on 4 is the fundamental circle constant. I will casually slip up and just say pi when I mean pi on 4, because in a lot of respects it doesn't matter. They're just scaled by a factor of 4. So for the most part, the significant properties of both of them are the same. Right? For the most part. There's a few differences, which is why pi on 4 is more fundamental in my opinion. But yeah, this I think is what's happening. I don't really think it's malicious, and that's why when I said like Euler is a charlatan, but not necessarily consciously aware of it. I think it's this sort of thing that was happening, right? So like when he's going around looking at division of 0 and saying this is infinite, but he's fully aware of L'Hopital's rule. I think what's happening is it's this kind of a slip, right? And the reason that it's able to be published after Bernoulli's death is more because he's sort of freed of someone saying, wait a minute, right? At that point in his life, he's pretty much to a point where nobody's checking him. So he's gonna make slip-ups like this. And this is actually one of the main reasons that I make videos the way that I make them, because I know people don't like it. You're like, oh, it's not edited, it's not researched, you don't care about, or whatever. Like, you know, I've seen comments like this. No, I'm going to make slip-ups. That's the point. I don't want to hide that. That is part of it. Because I'm just a person like anybody else, right? I'm not better than you, you're not better than me, right? That's how this works. So if you're going around trying to hide all of your mistakes, you're pretty much just a dick. And honestly, I think that's probably what happened with Leonhard Euler, discussing things like division by 0, where he's concluding that it's always infinite, even though he knows full well, from having seen L'Hopital's rule, that this is just nonsense. That's just absolutely nonsense. That's not what division by 0 does. He knows this. But he was probably raised, trained with a certain basic perspective, and it was entrenched deep enough that even after seeing more nuanced ways of doing it, he's gonna just revert. Right? That's how propaganda works. That's why it works. Right, so like when I'm criticizing these people, I'm not saying like they're bad people. I'm not saying, you know, that they're necessarily even not intelligent people. I'm sure plenty of them were more intelligent than I am. But what they are doing is they are saying stupid shit. Right? Everyone says stupid shit. I say stupid shit all the time. A couple videos ago, this example, it's almost irksome to me that I did this, but when I said 1962 instead of 1622 regarding the invention or the like production of slide rules, right? When I heard that, I was like, oh fuck. But I'm not going to take that video down. I'm not going to correct it. I'm going to comment on it, because that's how you grow. That's how you show other people you don't have to be afraid of this shit. You're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna do and say stupid shit because you're a person, right? And all of these other people also did that. So when they're making really, really dumb looking mistakes like this, that's probably where it's coming from. It's probably coming from culture, the shared culture that they share with the people around them that they grew up in. And they're making an attempt to break free of that, but you never can fully. Right? It's just entrenched in you. It's part of who you are. It's part of how your mind works. You can't fully escape it. Right? So I'm going to, even though I oppose using the word number for things like +5, because that is absolutely unambiguously a vector and not a number. 5 is a number, +5 is a vector. I will still casually call +5 a number all the goddamn time because that's what I was raised to do. Right?